Hey Solutions, this is Retro or Unreal. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how you can do two different things here. First, I'll just show you what's happening with the controls for the Sega systems, or maybe even some other RetroArch consoles, which I'm mostly using RetroArch on the older consoles. I think like Game Gear, a lot of the handhelds, Master System, I believe. Right now, I am remoted into your computer. This is actually your computer right here, and I booted up a Genesis game, as you mentioned, to see what was happening with the settings on the Genesis controllers. And I think I quickly saw what was going on. The controllers changed from the value that I originally set. I'm not sure why this changed. I have seen this before where something weird causes it to change. So what I'll do is I'll show you how you can quickly change the controller back to what it needs to be. On RetroArch, for RetroArch is a really advanced emulator, right? So what you can do is, for let's say a system like Genesis, the Genesis actually had different types of controllers. You had your 3 button, you had your sports controller, you had your 6 button for more advanced games, and they had a bunch of other controllers. So depending on the game you're playing, or the actual physical controller you're holding in your hand, you can actually change the setting in RetroArch to emulate that kind of controller. And it looks like it was set to the wrong controller type. I'm thinking that's what it is. I need to have you around to actually check the changes and see if that's really what's the problem, but I believe that's what the issue is. I'm going to launch a game up and just show you how you can quickly change that. Alright, so we have AeroBiz here. You won't launch it through this program, but it's just, same thing as launching through Hyperspin. So we're gonna launch. I have it in a windowed mode right now because it's easier for me when I'm remote desktop in. Sometimes when it's full screen, for me it's just a big a black screen, so that's why it's windowed. I'll set it back to full screen once I'm done. But what you can do is once you start a game, just like this game here, you want to tap F1 on your keyboard, right? That's going to bring up the menu, right? Or the settings menu. Boom. So here we go. Just tapped F1. Now the game is paused, and you have your menu. What you want to do now is scroll down. You can use your arrow keys on your keyboard or a controller, actually. If the controller doesn't work, use your arrow keys. Go down to controls, okay? You want to hit enter. So here at the top, it's going to say user one device type, right? And that's what we're kind of sticking with for now, one controller. I've already set it to Joypad Auto, which is what it should be on. Um, but when I first booted it up before I started recording, it was on one of these MS Joypad 2 button master tap. So I'm not even sure what kind of controller, what kind of Genesis controller that was. Some kind of customized controller, but it's not the basic Genesis controller, right? The basic Genesis controller you'll use on most games, if not all games, um, is Joypad Auto, or you can set it specifically to Joypad 3 button or Joypad 6 button. I actually normally use Joypad 6 button. Um, Normally, but Joypad Auto should work fine, right? So I set it to Joypad Auto, and that was saved. That's why you saw Joypad Auto when I first opened up RetroArch. Yeah, so you would just set that and then just close RetroArch. So now that we changed it to Joypad Auto, your joypad should work. I'm going to check something else here by relaunching that game. Normally when you launch a game in RetroArch, it'll tell you what kind of controller it detected, if any controller at all. So let's see if it detects anything. Here it goes. It came up really quickly, but it actually said X input controller right here, which is the software you have installed for your controller on this computer. All right, so that covers your Sega issues, right? All of your you said the Sega was having that problem. So all the Sega consoles, they use RetroArch. So you want to do the same thing: launch the game, tap F1, scroll all the way down to controllers. Just set the device type to auto or some other controller that makes more sense than whatever customized controller it's on that doesn't work with your actual physical controller. Model 2 had a problem with DirectX, right? DirectX was outdated or something like that, so it was giving some DirectX 9 errors. I was able to update DirectX on this computer, so now I was able to launch the game. Game loads fine. A lot of these games are very hacky, right? This M2 emulator is actually not an emulator. It's actually they're actually like PC games that are being hacked to run, and it's pretty messy. So looks like something weird is going on here with that game. I'll have to figure. Maybe I have this emulator open. If the emulator is open, it won't actually the game won't launch. So doesn't look like it's open. So I'll have to check and see what's going on my computer with that game. Maybe that one doesn't work. I'm not sure. But I just launched Daytona earlier. I'm pretty sure. Okay, let's see what's going on here. I'm not getting anything. Which normally happens when the emulator is open somewhere. Or maybe it's open. No, it doesn't look like it's open at all. Okay, we'll have to figure this part out here. Nothing is loading. Oh, yep, it actually is opened right here. That's why that emulator has that problem sometimes. So yeah, if that actually happens, like let's say you load an M2 game, but it's the next one isn't working, just check and make sure it's closed. I can actually make a script to make it auto close, to like force close every time. I think I'll do that if that problem keeps happening. Yeah, there we go. So it's loading, and that's why it didn't load the first time. So here we go. And we have the game loaded. So DirectX, no DirectX errors. Sega M2 should be working. Let me see if the same thing happens. No, so it closed properly that time. So it closes properly most of the time. And yeah, there you go. All right, so M2 is working. Um, and so that's Sega M2. Okay. Now you also asked about filters on or blurriness. So with the older system, I'm not sure if you can upscale. Some systems you can, like Dreamcast, you can upscale. The older ones, I'm not sure, but there are filters. I normally use filters on the older systems because I like the older systems to use to look to have that CRT look. I grew up playing Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis on a CRT. So when I play emulators, I like it to look like that. And I think those settings may have been saved from my setup. So that's maybe the filter just doesn't look good on your monitor. That's what I'm assuming anyway. So what we can do is we'll launch a Sega Genesis game. I'll show you how you can change filters, things like that. Boom. So we're going to hit F1 again. We're going to go back into the menu. Um, so this time, what we're going to do is go down to shaders. Okay. Shaders are basically filters, screen filters. Okay. So what we'll do now is, let's see, load shader preset. So right now there's actually no shader set up, which is strange for, okay, there it goes. There's no no shader set up for Genesis right now. So it should just have that basic Genesis look. Let me actually see if I can just look at the emulator. Um, just see how it looks like. Sometimes it's a bit distorted through TeamViewer, but I should still be able to get a good look and just see if it's washed out or blurry or um, see what's really going on here. I actually own this game too, so I have a good idea of how it's supposed to look. I mean, it looks okay. I can use the arrow keys, cool. Start, oh wow, I can use arrow keys. Alright, let's get into some gameplay. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So, on Genesis, I would say the graphics look pretty okay, but still, you could change filters here. Like I said, for me, I wouldn't leave it like this, right? I would add the CRT filter. So what you could do is you can come back to shaders. Um, Different ways you can do it. I'm thinking about how to teach you what's the easiest way. So what you can do is go to load a preset, right? You can load a shader preset. So you can hit enter. This is OpenGL, I believe. This part depends on if you're using OpenGL or Vulkan. I believe I set your drive to use OpenGL. It's the basic video driver. So for that, you want to use GLSL for OpenGL. So here, when you go to GLSL, you're going to see a bunch of different filters. You can have cell filters, filters that actually look blurry, which is what I thought was the issue at first when he said it was blurry. I thought, hey, maybe there's some blur filter applied. That's not the case, however. You got film grain if you want it to look like a handheld, which I do use on Game Boy. I like using the Game Boy filter to make it look like super pixelated. Looks just like the old Game Boy. Yeah, but for now, I usually use CRT on my Genesis. So you can go to CRT, you'll see a lot of different CRT filters or shaders. To get an idea how they look, you can simply apply it, or there's a website, you can just search these shaders in Google. Like for instance, search CRT Easy Mode. You'll see a website showing you what it looks like and the differences, but there's different levels of filter, and some have like a rounded edge, some have a square edge. I like the rounded edge. The filter I like the most is, and I haven't used it in a while, but when I see it, I'll remember. There's so many. Um, it's not Royal. I tried Royal, wasn't a big fan. Vertical is actually good for vertical shooters. Where is it? Slots is pretty good. Hillian is good. Geom. Yep, this is the one I use right here. So I always use Geom. It gives it that round edge that reminds me of my old TV and the CRT look. So you just hit enter, boom, and it's already changed. You can tell, but in the background, the edges are now more rounded, and you're gonna have that CRT look. So you want to go to apply changes, which I have done, and now you can go back to resume, boom, and you have your CRT look with the round edges. Look at the edges, right? And to me, that actually looks a lot better for me personally. There are other filters too. Some people like the cartoony look. I like the scan lines, the lines in the screen. That's how I played my old school games, right? So to me, this actually looks perfect. Um, you can do the same thing for every RetroArch system, right? You load up your game, and I'll show you again. You load up your game, hit F1, go all the way down to shaders, go to load shader presets. There's different kinds of shaders depending on the video backend, but remember, you're using GLSL. You go in there, and here you go. You have all your shaders, right? A lot of people like XBRZ, makes it looks very smooth. I don't like it. But a lot of people like it. You got VHS to make it look like an old VHS tape. You can do whatever you want. But like I said, I'm gonna leave it on Geom for now. See how you like it. I love it. It's my favorite one. If you don't like Geom, just do what I showed you. Come back here, take it off. What you can do too is if you just want to disable it, right here where you would apply, you can go here and change it from 1 to 0 and then apply, and then that will disable it as well. That number, by the way, this 1 here next to shader passes, and it tells you right below it kind of intensifies the level of the shader, right? So if you want it to look more grainy or more scan lines, you increase that level. Let's and You can also add multiple shaders to with the shader passes as well by increasing the level, um, and also the scale. That increases it as well. So now let's go back and resume. Boom, looks great. Like I said, I don't think there's a way to upscale. To upscale, you'd hit F1 and go to options, right? So options is this module. The emulator in RetroArch, like the emulator specific to Genesis, it's called a module, right, or a core. Most people call it core, actually. So the core for this Genesis emulator is called Genesis Plus GX. Every emulator has different features and settings. So you can go to options for Genesis Plus GX and see if it has any upscaling. We can just go through the list there, see if there's any way to increase the resolution. I think Super Nintendo can, but let's see. You can change audio filters, low pass filter, a lot of different stuff you can do here. You can look it up online if you need to know, hey, what exactly does that do? But no, it doesn't look like you can actually change the resolution, only filters, okay? So yeah, check out the filter I have, see if you like it. If you don't like it, then you can just go to shaders, turn it off. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. I believe I took care of everything that you requested. If not, definitely shoot me an email on Gmail. Yep, I'm gonna add on some new systems as well. I added on Switch, I added on Commodore. Oh, by the way, Commodore. Let me show you Commodore real quick. I just remembered. Let's close that. And we're gonna. So Commodore is definitely a very strange emulator, right? It's old and it's emulating very old, hardware, extremely old. You didn't have your standard controllers and things like that. I believe it was a keyboard. So use a keyboard. I can use Joy to Key if you don't want to use keyboard. I can use Joy to Key to set keyboard keys on your controller so you can use your controller, just like I did on Dreamcast the other day. So let me know if you want that. For me, I just use keyboard, so let me know how you want it to work. But for now, yeah, the controls, I'm not 1,000% sure. I'll have to look it up. But I did launch a game, and I was able to start the game like on the old Commodore. I've never actually played a real Commodore, but I believe from videos I saw, you'd start the game and then there's like combination of keys that you'd press to. Alright, looks like something just happened there. Looks like I was booted off. Not sure what happened. Let's see if we can get back on. ZXQ. Is that an older? Okay, that's the older password. NMC192. Okay, boom. I have no idea. Oh crap! Yeah, this has been happening. I don't know what is causing this to happen. Um, yeah, so it's kind of like bugs out. The Commodore emulator is like sometimes it bugs out and you can't close it. Well, I can't close it remotely anyway. So what I'm gonna do for now, I'm gonna say let's not use Commodore for now until I'm probably gonna update this emulator, see if there's a better option. Cause yeah, a lot of games work, but I noticed that this happens where you'll start a game and then you'll go to a black screen and this will happen here where you'll see these two windows and then no game or anything, and then you can't really close the program. You have to log off. So what I'm gonna do now is log off. I'm gonna upload this video. Everything else should be fixed with the Sega stuff, M2, Dreamcast. Let me check your email here. Sega, the Mega Drive Master, yeah, those, like I showed you how to modify the controller, so that should all you need to do. Can't seem to get the controller working in Intellivision. I believe Intellivision is also using RetroArch, so it's probably the same thing where the controller type changed. These older systems I don't play that much, so kind of forget. But yeah, RetroArch, yep. So yeah, if the controller's not working, might be something. This is running on my computer right now. Alright. Alright, so as you can see, I have the geom. You can tell by the edges of the screen it's rounded. I love that. Looks just like my old TV. Intellivision, left, press right, press A. Yeah, the controls are really wonky with these things. I'm not sure what to really even press right now. Let me turn my controller on, see if that works. So if I turn on fast forward, no, my controllers don't work at all. So let's see what the controls are actually set to here. So remember, we're going to go down to controls. So it's set to RetroPad with analog, which I believe is yeah, let's just see if RetroPad does anything. I know some of these games you have to, oh, the game is paused. Why is the game paused? Not sure why it's paused, but it's paused. Okay, it's not paused anymore. What did I press to pause the game? Yeah, so this game, and some of these games are like this where it just starts up and I don't really know. I'm gonna have to do more research into the older systems like this. Crap, let me see if a different game works. So this game, since graphics seems to be working. Oh, so when you click, it pauses. Okay. So clicking left, pause, left, right, letter A. Holy crap. So okay, I'll have to look into Intellivision as well. I'm not too sure what's happening with these controls. When I first add these systems, I test them and I look into it, research it, make sure I understand how the controls are supposed to work. And I definitely sure the controls were working at one point. But yeah, at this point, I'll have to ask some of my buddies that are more specialize in crap, I just accidentally changed the filter. I'll have to figure out what the exact controls are. I'll get back to you on that. But yeah, everything else should be good to go. And I'll get back to you on Intellivision and Commodore controls. We'll see what's happening there. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.